All right, so welcome back to another episode of the OH-HighYo podcast, where we shine a light on the voices and the stories shaping the cannabis space across Ohio and beyond. And tonight we're honored to be joined by a true leader in the world of plant medicine, Megan Mbingwe.
Close. It's Bang.
Nurse Megan Bang, sorry. A registered nurse with over 12 years of experience and the founder and CEO of Trusted Canna Nurse, as you may have seen online. Armed with a master's degree in medical cannabis therapeutics, Megan has dedicated her life to educating and empowering patients to explore the healing powers of cannabis and psychedelics. She leads a team that provides consultations, microdosing programs, and the therapeutic CBD product line, all while creating some of the most successful, trusted cannabis education online. So she's also, she's still got more things. She's also on the advisory board at CanMed, Pacific College of Health and Science, and the Society of Cannabis Clinicians. So whether you're curious about cannabis from a medical perspective or navigating healing through plant medicine, this episode is for you all. So make sure you stay tuned for the full episode. And let's welcome to the OH-HighYo podcast, the one and only Nurse Megan.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, wonderful. So we have to ask everyone, this is like our starting question. Do you personally use cannabis? Why or why not?
Great question. Yes, I do. For me, so I really like using the CBD, CBG, CBDA, CBGA. I like using those cannabinoids for like my own pain and athletic recovery. I am somebody who can't consume THC during the day because it messes with my focus and my memory. So it brings me off point if I consume during the day, and I like to be on point. So if I'm going to consume THC, it's at nighttime before I go to sleep. But yes, I'm absolutely a consumer.
Of course. That's dope. And it's dope. That's a good reason why we have this podcast and this platform. We love to explore the professionalism in cannabis. And you are a great example of that, as we're going to uncover more in this show. First question I have for you is, I see that you were a corporate bedside nurse with no business background. So what motivated you to take that leap into entrepreneurship?
Well, I was working at the bedside as a hospice nurse, and that's when I saw like the beauty and the power of medicine and helping a hospice patient with her seizures. And at that time, like I didn't know anything about cannabis. I was only taught what we were taught, which was that it was bad and addictive, and I wasn't a consumer because of that, and then also because I had to pee in a cup every 3 months because I was a travel nurse. It just wasn't on my radar. But as I saw like the benefits in my patients, I was like, oh my gosh, there's nobody to help guide these patients on how to use this plant medicine the right way for their symptoms. Nobody that I could find at the time. Anyways, this was 3 years ago. So from there, I was like, I want to be that resource. I want to be that person that helps people navigate cannabis. And from there, I just jumped in the deep end. I had no idea what I was doing. I still feel like I have no idea what I'm doing. But just with 3 years of experience of having no idea what I'm doing. And I had no clue that it was going to turn into what it is now with a whole team of nurses. And we have an admin, and an entire product line. My intention at the beginning was just to do consultations to help guide people on cannabis and just have it be like a little small business. And we've grown so much. So I don't know, I guess a little bit of insanity and some ideas, and then combined with like this new passion for creating content online. Like I love educating. That's definitely, I have that passion. And then I started creating content and then being able to edit that and put that out and like connect with people on a real level is where I kind of found that that's my happy place for sure.
Yes, I love that so much.
No, that's dope. That's dope, and you do a great job at doing that from the content I've seen. And you said you got to be a little crazy, but you got to be a little crazy to be an entrepreneur. Period. So,
especially in cannabis,
right? Especially in cannabis, you're taking a real leap. So, That is dope. And you also founded Trusted Canna Nurse to bridge a gap in the healthcare space. What did you notice was missing between patients and plant medicine that made you want to bridge that gap?
I mean, what was missing was like the entire education on teaching patients like what to use, how much to take, what they're taking it for, how long they need to take it for before they start seeing effects. Like none of that. It did exist in some capacity, but in a broad sense, like it wasn't there. You know, you go to a dispensary and out here in California, they're not training the bud tenders very well because they're not paying them very well. It's a high job. So like they didn't know what terpenes were. It was, and they're recommending, you know, a 10 milligram gummy to a newbie user who's like 80 years old.
Oh my
So
goodness.
just like seeing that, like that huge gap. And then also on the flip side of that, after having been in it for a while, we're seeing patients with issues from long-term heavy use of THC. And like that's a lot of what I see on a daily basis as well.
No, that's so crazy. I've seen a video online today on YouTube. A video just came out 2 days ago from Snoop Dogg. You all need to look it up. And it's called his last run with Mary Jane.
Yeah.
And it starts off with him in the doctor's office, and Dr. Dre is the doctor. And Dr. Dre showed him a lung that was a clean lung, and then he showed him a lung that said, "This is your lung." It's a crazy video with all these different messages. He went through his timeline of how he started smoking he first smoked at 5 years old and all the way up till now. And it was just crazy. I was like, wow, is this real? Snoop Dogg's out here talking about, you know, that exact issue. So I think, you know, just listen to what you're saying. I know Bree's been bringing that up. I think working on an article about something just like that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's that time where we're getting more case studies, more timelines of people using it long term and starting to see some results. What has been your view on that, Nurse Megan?
And what I see, I think that my view is somewhat skewed because I get an email, a DM, or like multiple comments on my content daily, on a daily basis, on people who have CHS or symptoms of CHS, and that's cannabis, cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome. So what I see is like these detrimental effects, you know, when your lens is very skewed, that like that's what you're exposed to on a daily basis. It's very challenging. And it's sad because people don't know that that's a major risk factor of long-term heavy use of THC. So I see it a lot. And even if people don't develop CHS, a lot of times what we see is people have anxiety and depression, and they have super high tolerance to cannabis. And what we see, like based on the research, when we consume a lot of THC, our CB1 receptors, our cannabinoid receptors, will downregulate. And that means that they hide inside the cell. So they're no longer available to do anything. We need the cells, we need the receptors available on the cell wall for them to have their action. So when people develop a high tolerance, that's because those receptors are going inside the cell. And that's also associated with increased anxiety and increased depression.
Now,
So
can those receptors come back out of the cell?
yes, they can, but we have to stop using for a period of time in order for them to reset. And the timelines are, you know, they say like 48 to 72 hours is a good time, but really a full reset can be done. Like if you want a full reset, I think it's about 4 weeks or like a month break. And that's not, you know, tolerance breaks aren't for everybody, but sometimes people struggle with their relationship with the plant and could benefit from, you know, a tolerance break. And that's like what we help people with when they come to us with issues.
Right. And then my last question on that point, because this is great stuff. I'm sure so many people has questions about this. But what would you consider heavy use when you say CHS comes from long-term heavy use?
That's a
What
good.
would you consider heavy use?
Yeah, I know that's the magic question, right? Is where's the line of I'm not going to get it? And this was a large part of our research study looking at the use patterns of people who got CHS. And what we found, again, this has not been peer reviewed yet. I have to give that disclaimer, is that people who use vapes and who are smoking, they're using it like 5+ times a day. And that's either smoking or vaping, if I'm remembering the data correctly. So 5 or more plus times a day, every day. Some people have only been using for a couple of years. Some people have been using for 10+ years. And people can get it for using less. And some people don't develop it at all. There is a genetic component, which is why, heavy users we see haven't developed it.
Right, right. So I guess it's kind of like, sometimes you can see somebody smoke cigarettes all the way till they were 98 years old and, die of old age. And then somebody dies at 50 years old from smoking cigarettes. So it's a genetic thing. Do you see like any consistencies in like physical traits or health conditions of people that have claimed that they have CHS?
We asked about medication use, and by far the most common medications that people were on were for anxiety and depression. And, is it like chicken or the egg? Were they when did they start using cannabis? Did they start using it before they were put on the medication or after they were put on, so we're not sure, but that was a consistency. We asked out like height and weight to see if there was some sort of correlation. Are they underweight? Are they overweight? But the way we asked it like right now, what's your height and weight? But we have no idea where they were in their CHS journey. Have they been recovered for 10 years and they're at a healthy weight, or are they like in the middle of it and they've recently lost 40 pounds? So that wasn't a good assessment.
What kind of genetic markers do you guys think is like linked to CHS? Do we have any idea yet?
Yeah, we do know. We've known for a couple of years. There are 5 different genes that a small study was done, and they found that these 5 genes exist or are different in people with CHS versus those who don't get CHS. And this was an Ethan Russo study from a number of years ago. And from that, they developed a test that people can take to see if their genetic markers make them more susceptible to getting CHS. And I wish that was more out there and more known so that people can, consider it and maybe get themselves tested. Because that's when people come to us like in the very early stages of CHS. I don't know why my screen is moving. That's being weird. When people come to us in the very early stages and they're not sure if it is CHS, then oftentimes we recommend that they go ahead and get a genetic test, and then that's going to help give you a better idea.
So is Nurse Megan telling us and everybody listening right now that everybody should be intermittently fasting from marijuana, throughout the year as just a health precaution? Maybe if you smoke in 1 month, take 2 weeks or a month off the next month, or what would you advise in that area?
I'm not here to tell anybody how to use their medicine. What I preach is definitely mindful and intentional consumption, as opposed to using it as a crutch to numb out from something challenging. And sometimes we need to do that. Totally get that. But are we doing that on a daily, hourly basis because what we're facing is challenging? Do we need help working through those emotions so we don't have to depend on this substance to numb us out? But if we're using it to manage pain and we're not having any adverse effects from it, then that's amazing. That sounds like appropriate use. But if people are developing issues related to their use, then maybe we need to take a look at it. Because we don't, if people were on a medication for a long time and having adverse effects, we would say, maybe we need to look at that medication. And I think that should hold true for cannabis also.
So I know a lot of people just smoke just to fill space. You just sitting around too long. And you just, okay, you got nothing else to do, you just roll up. And if you really ain't got nothing to do all day, you done smoke 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. So everybody listening that's doing that, make sure we like with everything.
Yes.
In moderation.
And it's just about mindful intentional use and moderation. And what else are we doing to help, like with what we're feeling? What else are we doing to help with our sleep other than just taking a gummy? Are we meditating? Are we turning our screens off? Or like what else are we helping to manage our anxiety? There are things we can take like magnesium and CBD and CBG. So many people love their THC and then they're like, but I still have pain. And I'm like, well, are you consuming CBD or CBG? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, let's explore these other cannabinoids that have an equally magic power in helping manage symptoms.
Yes, and I'm glad that you said that because I was going to just ask, aside from, taking tolerance breaks here and there, do you think that taking other minor cannabinoids can help with preventing, developing CHS?
Right. That's such a great question. My personal belief is the answer is yes. And here's why is because if we're using THC and then we add in CBD and CBG and we need less of the THC, then, kind of like A plus B equals C, then that may lower our risk. Of course, we don't have research to show that right now, but that's what I see in practice is that if people are using less THC, they have less of a risk of getting CHS. So
yeah,
I think so. And I would love to see that more. And there's some research showing that THC actually increases our inflammation. Somebody just messaged me today and said she has some kidney disease and she gets pain when she smokes. I'm like, well, are you using CBD? She wasn't. So hopefully she's now going to explore CBD for her pain instead of the THC, which is causing pain.
Now smoking versus eating edibles, are there any known health risks as far as eating the THC? Or can you still face CHS if you're not smoking or vaping?
Based on our study, people who took edibles only, some of them still got CHS. It was a low number, and those people were only consuming them like 1 to 2 times a day as opposed to like 6 times a day. But we don't know how many milligrams they were consuming. It was like 50 or 500 or something, a higher dose multiple times a day. I think the thing to remember about edibles is obviously they are stronger than smoking, and they last longer. So people just need to be mindful of like their dose and use the lowest effective dose that they need. If 3 milligrams gets you a good night's sleep, then there's no reason to go up on that. But if you need to go up, then go up,
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a difference between like just like smoking, you know what I mean, just to like get super crazy high and then just like taking enough to take the edge off or address the issue. Very much more mindful.
Completely different. Completely different. Years ago I ate an edible. It was a gummy that I bought from a store. This edible was so strong that I thought I was like living in a chapter out of the Bible. I thought I was living like I thought I was living in like a stable somewhere in the old school. Like it was just crazy. And I couldn't function. Another story on that is me and my wife, we went to SeaWorld a few years ago and we split a little gummy before we went into SeaWorld. And my wife, she deals with anxiety and I don't really deal with anxiety. So when we got into SeaWorld, the gummy, once it kicked in, it actually helped her to be able to withstand our trip there because, SeaWorld is packed. Thousands of people walking around, so many things going on. And she doesn't like big crowds and stuff like that. So she was cool. But me, on the other hand, like it was like, taking medicine you don't need to be taking. Like you said, being intentional about your THC intake. For me, it gave the opposite effect to where I'm in there watching the dolphins, killer whales, and Shamu and everything, and I was like literally tweaking out. Like I thought that looking at those dolphins coming out the water was so strange. like it was just gonna come out and eat all of us or something. I'm just like, wow.
You were fried.
But you had the exact adverse effect to where it helped her completely. You know what I mean? In that exact situation.
It's so fun.
Yeah. And see that is the exact piece I think that is missing in, I mean, it's better now with the education, but like knowing, helping people to find their dose. Maybe we don't make gummies that are 50 or 100 milligrams, because even a small piece of that can send somebody to the moon, and that was not their intention, you know. And of course, like if people want to get blitzed, like by all means, you know, go for it. But as long as like that's what you're choosing to do, and of course it's a better alternative than alcohol. So like I'm very pro cannabis. I don't want to come off as anti-cannabis, but a balanced approach I think is really important, and sometimes we don't get the balanced approach.
Right. No, I think this is a needed conversation, and I don't think it's anti-cannabis at all. I think it's a lot of questions that a lot of cannabis users actually do have, but they don't never hear the answers anywhere, or they don't want to even ask to get the answers. You know what I mean? Because all we've heard in this whole cannabis renaissance is weed's good. Everybody should be able to smoke weed, do whatever you want, blah, blah, blah. But you do not hear in an equally informative way that people can receive it, that, okay, let's do things in moderation and balance. You either get the smoke all the weed you want and do whatever, or weed is bad for you. It's the worst thing in the world. Right. There's not really much of a space for in between, but we see that you are definitely bringing that with the content and everything that you're doing. So, you know, we appreciate what you are bringing to the community with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And people can't like go to their doctor and talk about their weed consumption and like have a discussion about their dosing. And then they like, a lot of people in the industry, that's what's really frustrating a lot of times about like, you know, I'll post stuff on LinkedIn about like moderation and mindful, intentional consumption and issues that I see personally, and then I get attacked like by people from the cannabis industry. It has never killed anyone. It doesn't cause these issues. It's the pesticides, you know. So people are kind of are stuck in the middle. Like, okay, I can't go here and talk about it and talk about it. But like we are happy to be a resource to help kind of pull the pendulum back to the middle in like moderation.
Right. No, that is dope.
It's valuable for sure. Like people like you, people like me who are like out here talking to consumers, buying cannabis products at dispensaries and stuff. We're doing our best. Definitely the people that actually care enough to educate themselves and, you know, try to actually be a consultant. You know, some people are in there to just sell weed, honestly. Like, it is what it is. And the dispensaries don't seem to care enough about educating staff, training, and stuff like that. It doesn't seem like the state cares. So it's like to each their own.
Just like nurses go to nursing school, they need to go to Canna nursing school.
Yes, absolutely. Nurses are supposed to know this information. Like it's been part of our national guidelines for 8 years now. But there are still like not enough nurses who know the difference between THC and CBD, even, you know, let alone that we have an ECS. One day, maybe.
A lot of work to be done.
So much work to be done.
I feel like we've been saying the same things, but there's still so many people that still need to be reached.
100%. Like it's a whole different crowd of people. You know, like in Ohio, even though marijuana is legal recreationally and medically, there's still a huge population of people just still getting their cannabis in the streets. So, and that same population are the ones who know nothing about terpenes, know nothing about anything we're talking about right now. They're not even listening to anybody with these conversations. So I'm just happy that we'll be able to have these today. And another question for you, coming from such a medically, classically trained background, what was it like going from a traditional medical space to advocating for cannabis and psychedelics?
I love this question so much. I was that nurse who was so like science driven and objective driven, and like anything outside of that, any of like the mystical, the energy, even the word like inflammation kind of carried that that otherness to it. I was very much like in the pharmaceutical land. Like, this isn't this energy, sound healing. Are you fucking kidding me? Sound healing? And now here I am, like a few years later, like experiencing like real energy work on my body, and experiencing my body like having these movements that I have no control over during a sound bath. And then having these mystical experiences on mushrooms, and talking about the difference between intuition and anxiety, and just stepping into like that sort of space, completely changing like my entire paradigm of the way that I thought, but yet still having this piece of I need to know the science behind that, because I want to understand how it works. There has to be some sort of science behind that. So it's very interesting. It's fun to like kind of discover and uncover this part of myself that I for so long wasn't there. And I denied that part of life.
Right.
Wonderful. I love that so much. So we're actually moving on to the next section.
Okay.
So you've built a successful business and an online presence largely through education. What has been your content strategy, and how has that helped build community?
The content strategy for me has always been education and connection. And early on, when I started creating content 3 years ago, like I kind of have this thing, and maybe it's like middle child syndrome or something, that like if I learn something and it's new to me, I'm like, this must be new for everybody else. I have to tell everybody this information. So that's when I started creating content and kind of like, honing in on that craft. And that's what worked early on, is not like selling this, this amazing topical that we have. It's like, here's how this topical works when it touches our skin, because it connects to the receptors. Here's what happens when it attaches to the receptors. So taking that education approach has always like worked really well for me, because then I become, a trusted source, that people trust the information coming from me. And then if there is a product or service that comes along with it, then people have like built a connection with me, and then they trust that they're getting a quality product. And that's really important to us. So that's been the approach, and that's something that has worked really well so far.
That's solid. That definitely seems like a really good approach to content creation. I know I used to watch this guy on YouTube that I really admired his content and just how he spoke and how he, communicated his message. And one thing that always stuck with me is that he talked about how you should be giving some sort of value to your audience. So you should think about that, when you're making content, like what are they going to be able to take away? So I thought that's really cool. What are some of the most common misconceptions patients still have when it comes to using cannabis medicinally?
Two sides to this coin. Misconceptions, of course, that THC is like only for getting you high, or that only stoners use THC. The THC that carries that stigma with it, of course. So that's a big conception. And then like breaking that down, especially for like the senior community, like the baby boomers and older, like breaking that down and say, actually, this can help you with your sleep and your pain and your diabetic nerve pain. It can really help with that. Let's see here. What other misconceptions on that side? That CBD doesn't work. That's a big one. And people have tried CBD one time. Maybe they tried like some shitty isolate or something, and it didn't work for them. But CBD takes time to work, and the quality of the product is really important. And CBD is a quiet medicine. It takes time, and it's like very nuanced, whereas THC is a loud one. You will know when the THC has kicked in and it's working. But CBD is small changes over time. And same thing with CBG. Quality matters, and the extraction method of the product definitely matters. And then on the flip side of that coin, the misconceptions that we see is that, THC is completely harmless. THC doesn't cause issues. That, the story that I posted a while ago on the 25-year-old who took a 500 milligram Delta 8 gummy and then collapsed and died. And of course, we can't say for sure because the autopsy report said that it was heart disease that he had. However, THC, we know, increases our heart rate. So in people with underlying diseases and conditions, THC might not be appropriate and it might cause issues. And so I think that that's really important, is that the misconception is that it's not harmful, but it can be to some people. Psychedelics also, psychedelics are most of them are incredibly safe, but they're not for everybody. So we have to take a look and make sure that people are healthy enough to be using them. So that's all.
That's awesome. And I agree. There's definitely a lot of misconceptions about cannabis that we just have to deal with on a regular basis.
Yeah, you must get it a lot.
Yeah, it is what it is. Sometimes people are willing to hear something different. Some people aren't, you just
Right. Yeah. When people come to me and they're like, so are these indica or sativa? I'm like, and sometimes I don't even know how to answer that. I'm going into the whole spiel and I'm just like, this one's for sleep.
Yes. And the language and terminology is also a whole nother thing. So definitely.
Right on that point that you're talking about, how do you see the medical field being more open in those conversations as far as the health concerns of THC, the health benefits? Like everybody has their family doctors, the doctors that they go to, and like you said, you usually can't even go into these places to talk about that. But so many people around, especially this country, using it right now. I mean, there's a huge disconnect. Obviously, we have people like you all that are out here, giving the education. But how long of a time frame do you think we have before that becomes more of a line thing? I don't know if you gotta have doctors need to have bud tenders at the hospitals, or can of nurses there, or how do you think things are going to go over the next 5 years?
I think that we're not going to see a major shift in the movement until it gets descheduled or rescheduled. Because at that point, then we will have, we already have a THC medication, an FDA approved one, but doctors still have no idea about the endocannabinoid system. But I feel like once it falls off Schedule 1, then doctors will have to prioritize cannabis education. Until then, it's going to come from small grassroots efforts that, people, nurses like me, there are a couple hundred of us around the country, and physicians, and, the people who know both sides and can be, or even bud tenders who doctors can trust to say, okay, I trust this person, I trust the products, go see them. And we have a number of doctors to do that, but on a large scale, it's not happening yet. But I think we need to see it descheduled or rescheduled before we do.
Baby steps.
Baby steps.
Tell us about the CBD suppositories you developed. What are they used for? And how did that study showing 94% effectiveness come about?
Yeah, CBD suppositories. So passionate about it because we put so much time, effort. We self-funded this study. So this is something we did last year. And what we did was we partnered with the Canema and More Better, their data collection place agency in the cannabis space. And what we did was we started with 100 women, 100 people with a bleeding uterus, and we collected data on a baseline period cycle. We call that phase 1. So they enrolled in the study and then they answered a question every day of their period. And then once they finished that, then we sent them a box of our suppositories. And then on the next cycle, they answered the exact same questions, but they were using the suppositories. So what we found was that it decreased pain by 55% on average. Between before using and after using, their pain decreased by over half. 94% of the people said that it helped decrease their pain and decrease their cramps. A lot of people said it improved their quality of life. The number of medications between phase 1 and phase 2 decreased by, I believe, it was over 70% reduction in medications that were used. So,
like medications used specifically for like menstrual cramps.
yeah, the like Tylenol, Motrin, whatever
Right.
else they. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Okay.
and yeah.
You only
You know,
do it for that, was the study only for that first month and second month, or did you guys take it a step further or what?
it was just the first month and second month.
I wonder if it would, like, if the results would be even better the next month. If they,
Right? I bet they would be.
yeah.
They would have. Yeah. Because again, we see it like with CBD, it's small changes over time.
Yes, exactly. And that was something I learned early on in my like bud tending like career, I
Mhm.
guess. And I thought that was such a neat little like thing to just learn about CBD. I mean, that was probably one of the first things that kind of sparked my interest in just like educating myself about cannabis.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really dope.
Absolutely.
Oh wait. Okay. So it's actually my segment. So just a second.
Okay.
This is my personal segment.
Take it.
There we go.
Welcome to Hemper's House, where we take a moment to be mindful and reflect on our personal, unique connections with cannabis. So I just have just two really easy questions for you, Megan. So the first question is actually, how would you describe your personal connection with cannabis or relationship? Like, is it, just medical? Would you say you have a spiritual connection with cannabis, recreational? How would you describe it?
Yeah. Thank you for that question. I'm going to be completely blunt and honest. My relationship with cannabis is a challenging one, actually. And that's because like I love my CBD and CBG. Like I will use CBG. I'll use those daily and the topicals. What's that?
I said I love CBG.
Oh, it's my favorite, my absolute favorite. But my relationship with THC is very complicated. And that's because, again, the lens that I see through is one where people are coming to me with issues related to it on a daily basis. So I sometimes have a hard time, plus, like a family history of alcoholism and addiction. So I am incredibly, like, just almost overly mindful of my THC use because of those things that I see. And I know that, like, I know what it takes to develop CHS and I'm like nowhere near that, but there's still part of me that's like, I don't want to consume because I don't want to like end up like that, even though like part of me knows that that's not going to happen, but that's still the lens that I see THC through. And it's a complex one. I do love to smoke, and be able to relax, but sometimes I have to like get over myself first in order to do that.
That sounds like a very balanced relationship with cannabis. Like you definitely appreciate and respect like the medicinal value that it has, but you are also very much so aware of like the other side of the spectrum in terms of like
Right.
health risks and stuff. So that's really real actually. I appreciate that answer.
Yeah. Almost makes me like almost too aware and too like hyper vigilant. Sometimes I don't like it. I just like want to be able to smoke and not have to think about it. But
Totally. No, I get that. But I feel like that's a very refreshing answer. I don't usually get people that, describe their relationship that way. So I feel like it's very eye-opening. So I appreciate you sharing that. And then also, so my second question, this is my favorite. So if you could imagine the cannabis plant as a physical expression of the divine mother nature energy, and let's say, she had some words of wisdom for us, maybe for your audience, what would you say that cannabis is like trying to bring in terms of like words of wisdom to us?
I feel like she would be telling us, like, respect me and like all that I can do and all that I can offer because I can offer a lot. Cannabis could help save the world and help save global warming if we can. But we live in America that's like rooted in capitalism. So, like, dichotomy that, like,
Yes.
of it, that we use a lot of resources to mass produce cannabis. So I just see her as like this goddess that just can help bring
She could do so many
light.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so.
I love that so much. Thank you so much for sharing. That's the end of my segment, Hemper's House. I appreciate you and us having that moment. Take it away, Anthony.
Thank you for the sound bowl. That was awesome.
Yes.
That was a great segment. Bree always gets real deep and, spiritual, building the relationship between people and cannabis. So, we love that here. I wanted to move now on. So, as we move, and I know we don't have too much time here left, but moving on in the realm of psychedelics, microdosing, and mental health, which we all know mental health is a super booming industry right now, and it's still on the rise. But I've seen that you mentioned microdosing helped you overcome internal mental blocks in business. Can you share more about your personal experience in that?
Absolutely. My microdosing journey started 2 years ago. And what I was seeing, I'll back up a little bit. So, in cannabis and seeing people and helping them with their cannabis use, what I was realizing is that, okay, everybody has trauma that's like leading to their chronic health issues. It's all related, like it all started from that traumatic event or from those childhood events. And cannabis can be a great symptom management tool, but it has some limitations, and people really need to work through their trauma if they want to not need the cannabis or not need their other medications, and that's where psychedelics can be such an amazing tool. So, and I had never done any psychedelics or anything like that. I'd heard a little bit of the hype of microdosing, and I was like, okay, if I'm going to be recommending this to patients or sending my patients to this, then I need to go through it and know what it's like. And it has just been incredibly life transforming. Like how it has opened up my mind to bring awareness to my own thought patterns and how I was wired and why I was doing the things that I was doing, and then be able to change those and adjust those and approach life with more empathy and understanding and less defensiveness and less I am right because I'm right, and just more okay, well, maybe I am the asshole. You know what? Maybe I am. And just being able to let down the ego and explore that. And then in terms of building the business, it's a lot, like putting your face on social media on a daily basis is a lot. And I have gotten a lot of hate for it. But being able to trudge through that, brush that off, and the increased creativity in creating my content, it's helped with pain. And then, of course, being able to help so many other people with their mental health as well. And yeah, just incredibly life-changing. And then also in helping people to cut their cannabis use. We did a small study almost 2 years ago now on microdosing for cannabis dependence. And it was a small group of 8 people. We put them through a tolerance break together. They were microdosing, and then they had group support along the way. And all 8 people were able to successfully cut their cannabis use. Wow. And that was amazing, right? So wow. That was cool.
Dope. And now, so microdosing, you went over the benefits of microdosing cannabis. Are there benefits of microdosing psychedelics like mushrooms or anything else like that?
So what we see is microdosing mushrooms can help people with their anxiety. It can help to lift their mood and their depression. It can help with pain a lot. It can help people who are feeling stuck and need some guidance. It can help give us clarity on, if we're at a fork in the road in our life and we're not sure which way to go, or if there's a relationship over here, we're not sure if we should be exploring that relationship with a friend or whatever. Microdosing can help to quiet the brain chatter and help give us focus and clarity on what it is that we should be doing. It can help us tap into our intuition so that we can listen to that instead of all of these outside voices. So many benefits. Of course, not appropriate for everybody, but it has helped a lot of people and helped them come off their medications as well.
Right. And I could imagine the feeling and high that you get from cannabis and mushrooms are extremely different. I've personally never done mushrooms before. personally never done anything other than cannabis. And I didn't start smoking cannabis until I was like 22. So I'm not like a whole lot of other people because I was a track athlete. I ran track all the way up through college. But when I was in college, I had it was a guy on my floor in my dorm room. His name was Remick. And he was a little short guy with this big afro, and he was always on mushrooms. That's the first time I seen mushrooms. And I asked him, I'm like, okay, bro, like, I'm gonna try those one day. I said, but tell me what it's like on those mushrooms. And he said when he took a mushroom, he seen a entire tree grow from the seed all the way into a full tree. And from there, I'm just like, oh Lord, I'm like, that sounds crazy. So I never got around to it. Me and my wife always said we was gonna try it out, but I think I've always been hesitant or scared to try mushrooms just because of stories and what you see on TVs and movies.
The story.
Right,
so
right.
Could you explain what mushrooms are? Like what kind of effect do they give a more realistic idea of what it is?
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll explain like what a microdose feels like for a lot of people. Of course, not everybody. A microdose feels like people have described it as like a warm blanket, just like a warm hug. It feels like a warm hug. People will say that it helps them like in the moment after you take it. It just maybe some colors are brighter. Maybe people feel like less anxiety. Sometimes people feel a little bit sleepy. Like for me, the first time I took it, it made me a little bit sleepy and unfocused. And I took it the day before sitting down to write a paper for college, which was a bad idea because I just like wanted to be outside and experience it. And then what I noticed the following days was I was not altered at all, but I was definitely like, I was just happier, and I was more willing to like say hi to people and ask them how they were doing and things that I didn't normally do. So that's kind of like microdosing. And what it does is it helps to peel back the layers and expose what's underneath. For some people, what that exposes is that they've been tolerating a lot of bullshit. And it can like bring that up. So then they have increased anxiety because it peels back that layer. And they're like, I see what I've been tolerating and I don't want to tolerate that anymore. But when you get into the larger doses, what that feels like is kind of just some tingling here. You're not going to see, like, people don't have hallucinations per se. It's not like you see a pink elephant in the room. That's not there. People will close their eyes and see colors and patterns. Sometimes they go deep into their memory, and then that's when they can, if they choose to, like, go back in time to those traumatic memories and then shift their experience of them or shift their relationship to those memories. So then they come out on the other side having a different relationship to that trauma. And then oftentimes that we see better health outcomes because of that. Maybe they have less pain and less depression. So it's not a scary experience on mushrooms.
So
And of course, we start at a low dose.
I shouldn't be scared to make that leap.
Don't be scared. You can always start at a low dose and then slowly work your way up.
Right. Dope. Well, that was the last question I had on the psychedelics and microdosing and mental health. I'm filling in for Will. Usually Will has a segment right here, and I don't have a segment for this show, but I would like to talk about the social aspect of cannabis, right? Alcohol is something that's like a social thing. Some people they're not a drunk, but it's expected in certain business situations, social gatherings and everything for you to drink as a way of being respectful or whatever. And I feel like cannabis is like the same way. It can be the same way. And I wanted to get your insight on that as the industry continues to grow. And, we may be having like coffee shops, bud and breakfasts, and all these different things in Ohio. But I think a lot of people don't talk so much about the social aspect of cannabis. And the reason why I like that topic is, you see, I keep going to stories in college because that's when I started smoking like everybody else, right? But when I was in college, my girlfriend at the time, which is my wife now, we had broke up for a whole year while we were in college. And before we broke up, neither one of us smoked cannabis. When we got back together, we were both smoking cannabis. So cannabis literally, you know, when you break up with somebody and get back with them, it's that awkward time and that awkward space. But the cannabis was always that something that we did smoke with each other to communicate, socialize, and even to this day, it's something that is more so a social thing. So do you see, what is your feedback on that? Do you have any opinion on cannabis and the social aspect?
Love that it's being used in social settings in place of alcohol. I think that that's like the safety of that is incredible. And I'm all for that. I'm all for like the THC beverages, as long as they're at a dose that's appropriate for that person. I don't know that 50 milligrams belongs in a single beverage for, that somebody who has never consumed has access to, I think that like the 5 to 10 or even lower than that is like a great social space for probably the average consumer, new to average consumer to be in. I sometimes worry about like the events where there are the dab bars and then you have people who are like completely greened out because they did the dab bar and they've never done a dab before. So there is, concern. Again, it's like that overconsumption piece of it, and then we see problems because of it. If everybody's doing a dab bar and then everybody's happy about it, perfect. But if people have to go to the ER, like
that's bad.
That's bad, right?
That's not look good, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But I love the social part of it. I think that people are much less likely to do dumb shit after smoking than after drinking, and less likely to regret their decisions when they're smoking as opposed to drinking. So I'm all for the social piece of it. When it comes to me and socially consuming, it's challenging for me because I like to have like intellectual like conversations, and then if I lose my train of thought, which I already feel like I do sometimes anyways, I add in some THC and then it's like there's no hope. That's why sometimes no, I can't say that. Never mind. Sometimes I like to microdose before social events, microdose psychedelics before social events. And that doesn't happen to me. I don't have the short-term memory loss.
Very responsible. Okay, so what's been your biggest challenge so far as a cannabis nurse and business owner?
Oh, I think what makes me want to pivot and like dip out are the thing against CBD and hemp. The law is coming down against hemp is what's making it really challenging. Like we have an incredible therapeutic crafted line of hemp products that are helping people with like real problems, but they're illegal right now in California. And because of the hemp bans, and like state after state is banning hemp or banning certain amounts of THC to be sold outside of dispensaries. So I think that that's the most challenging part. And then of course, like the social media ban on cannabis and psychedelics. I feel like I've kind of like niched my way in, but also it's still challenging. Like here's just an example. I've been growing my Instagram account for 3 years and I have like 5,200 followers or something. And like I made an Instagram account for my 9-year-old son, and just like as his soccer portfolio, so he can have a portfolio for soccer, and so that recruiters can come and snatch him up, and then I can afford a house, right? And then I made a video for him on just like one video montage from one game, and he got like 80 followers from that one video. And I'm like, this is why I need to like exit cannabis, because my 9-year-old son can get like 10 times the amount of followers that I could get like I put so much time and effort into my content. And when it doesn't get seen, that's also very challenging. So those two things, the laws and then the social media bans.
Heard. Definitely.
That's so true. It's like when I talk to my other entrepreneur friends who's selling a product and doing everything else differently and watching their social media grow, and I'm like, they don't understand the challenges you have to face and the extra work you got to put in and extra creativity you have to come up with to grow a social media page and a social media followers in the cannabis space. So we understand and we commend you for being able to amass the following you've been able to grow through this. And I'm sure everybody listening that's in this cannabis space understands what you're talking about as well. So, how do you keep pushing through those? I'm sure you've gotten flags from Instagram. I'm sure you've gotten posts that's like, okay,
yeah.
this is supposed to have been a viral post, but it's not going viral. So how do you keep pushing through that?
I just keep posting and doing the best that I can. Sometimes I get lucky. I got lucky 2 years ago when I posted a video on tolerance breaks, and that went viral. That went viral on Facebook, and I got over 100,000 followers on Facebook. But now, like, I'll post a reel and like gets 200 views, and it's like, how? What? Like, and it's frustrating for me too. When you look on your feed and you don't see any of the people that you chose to follow. So that, like, I hate that part of it. But yeah, just pushing through and just doing everything that I can, and leave. Sometimes it's out of my hands, so I just have to like release, let it go, and if it's meant to happen, it will happen. Got to tap into the boo-boo part of me and just.
For sure, you just have to keep going and keep believing in yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure. Let's see. Okay, so you've faced censorship and social media suppression. We already asked that. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, she answered it. She was psychic. Her intuition's kicking in. So she answered the question already. I know we coming up on an hour right now, so we want to go ahead and try to close out, get everybody out to enjoy the their evening. We got these last final question. Bree can ask the last final question for us.
Okay, sure. What's one lesson the cannabis plant has taught you that you apply in your daily life?
I would say, like, the biggest lesson that cannabis has taught me is that, and it's so simple, that like plant medicine is a valid medicine. Because me coming from, the Western world where it was not valid, and it's still not valid. And so I think it's just taught me that we can listen to the plant. Like, she has so much to teach us, and she can heal us if we listen to her. She will tell us to stop coming back to her. Psychedelics will tell us to stop, and cannabis will tell us as well. It's just a matter of, are we listening, and we hear her.
Yes. Okay. That's very powerful. What do you want to see more of in the cannabis industry over the next 5 years?
I want to see more minor cannabinoids. I want to see more research. I want to see more people like speaking, like, again, the same thing, more moderation, less overconsumption, or the glorification of overconsumption.
Yeah. And
more low dose products, because such magic can happen for people at a low dose. So I'm cannot wait for the pendulum to swing back to the center, and people are no longer seeking the 95% distillate vape pens, because we have some research showing their harms, right? And we don't have that. We have some research, but I think we'll see more research coming up.
No, I'm so glad you said that, because everybody laughed at me the last 3, 4, 5 years ago when I was the one walking around saying, "Where's the Reggie at? Where's the regular weed? Where's the mid weed?" Everybody laughed. Don't nobody use that no more. Anthony, why are you talking? They say, "Anthony, don't say that out loud." I'm like, I don't want no cannabis that makes me super duper high all the damn time. You know what I mean? I'm a serial entrepreneur as well. I got a lot of stuff going on, busy all the time. And
Right.
I want something that helps me just to keep going, and without being so overly out the way. So shouts out to Nurse Megan for stamping that Reggie is good. Reggie is good.
Yes. And I think it blows my mind that I see like flower advertised, like, there's no CBD in this. Like, it's like a selling point.
You know what is so weird? Okay, especially when I came to Ohio, I noticed when I started bud tending here in the medical program, we would get people in the city that would literally be like, "I don't want nothing with no CBD in it." Like, there is this weird, like, hostility.
It's weird, right?
But it's ignorance, though. You know what I mean? Like, they don't even know what they're talking about. That's the craziest part. And it's like, it's so hard to just, like, get to a point where you can have a conversation about it, you know? Yes.
It's because everybody came up getting their cannabis from the streets, and there was zero education coming from that way. So That's what we're facing up. But we appreciate you coming on here with us, Nurse Megan. Where can everybody find your products, services, or consultations, or anything else that coming up?
Thank you so much for having me on. This is a wonderful conversation. If people are interested in our products, they can go to trustedcananurse.com. They can book a free call and talk to a nurse, and we can help guide people on which of our products to choose. If people are interested in learning how to microdose, they can book a free discovery call, talk it through with a nurse, get their questions answered, make sure it's appropriate programs to help people do that. And then we have a microdosing one-on-one webinar coming up on Monday, the 28th. I don't know when this will air, but this is happening Monday night at 4 p.m. People can register for that on the website as well.
Nice.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Megan, for sharing your story, sharing your science,